So here we are, we're talking about Star Wars The Last Jedi. I'm Jonathan.
Mike Jones.
Michael Lester.
Charles Conklin.
And we're talking Star Wars. We just all got back from seeing Episode 8 for the first time, Thursday night opening. And let's start with Mike. What'd you think? A couple words about it.
I enjoyed it. It's the most fun I've had at a Star Wars film in a long, long time.
As I told somebody when I came out of the theater, I remember not so long ago coming out of Episode 1 going, wow, that was amazing. So I kind of want to let it set in a little bit before I'm reserving judgment.
Personally, I don't know. It's so hard to say because, seeing these films so many times, like Episode 7 and Rogue One, the newest ones, you've still seen them 7 or 8 times each, and so, you see them and they settle in, but overall, not feeling so positive about this one walking out of the theater.
In a word, disappointed.
Well, Mike, what are some points that stuck out to you about Episode 8?
I thought the music was on point. I felt that the overall tempo was good. There was a lull. I felt like the film could have been shorter by about 20 minutes. I felt like there was one segment in particular that was potentially unnecessary for the plot altogether.
We're going to jump into spoilers, so go ahead.
Yoda. They totally just fanboyed us with Yoda. That scene was, when I saw him on screen, I was really happy when I saw Yoda, but then after it was over, I was like, that really didn't serve any point.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it served a point, but I felt like it nuanced us intentionally for where we were as an Empire-esque film. For me, it was the entire plot device with respect to going and finding a code breaker. All of that was a complete unnecessary side story because ultimately it does nothing. It solves nothing. It creates something. It does not perpetuate the plot at all.
I felt like that whole storyline was weak and out of place.
And if it's again, spoilers off the table. If it is a bridge to our final scene, I think it could have been done a different way altogether. So that was a disappointing arc, and again, I think that's where we'd have been able to get time back and kept that tempo going a little bit greater pace.
Sure.
I'll take that one a step further and say that I felt like Benicio del Toro's character was a complete waste.
Absolutely.
He's a world-class actor.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, my hope was he was the one in the Scoutwalker, not BB-8. That was my hope, because that would have been the term, because his last line is maybe, after being said, there's you either choose, the light or the dark, and he's like, maybe this does have a good side, a bad side. And then had he been in the Scoutwalker, that would have done it for me, because it would have fit his code breaking skills. Which again, I think they overplayed BB-8 a little bit with respect to he can break into anything. He became why not just have BB-8 break into the system? He's an R2 unit.
Is R2's? Maybe he was in some scenes in the background. The only scene that I really remember R2 in is in the Falcon. Is R2 just irrelevant now?
R2's made the powers that be mad, and they've cut back something significant.
They're cashing it out.
Yeah. Well, it was probably due to all his bad behavior on the free.
Yes, that's true.
He couldn't watch his
drink it on set, couldn't watch his language.
So let's jump back to Yoda. Like you said, that Empire themes, that's a really cool part. Something that I thought, though, if Yoda would have just showed up the day before, and obviously he could just appear whenever, there's no stipulation, only when 2 suns rise can Yoda show. If he would have just showed up and showed himself to Rey, or even just talked to Luke the night before and been talked some sense into him, they would have avoided all this Rey and Kylo and confrontation.
Well, maybe it's supposed to happen. Yoda has a perspective that we don't have.
True.
So my assumption would have to be that he was allowing Luke to see himself all the way to the ultimate position, which was, I'm going to burn this tree. So until you reach that place, and anybody who goes on a spiritual journey, whether in this terrestrial world or on film or in a book, you have to ultimately allow for the wise person in that, whether it be a living being or a spirit being or whatever, to let you go to your nth place and then step in if need be. And I felt that's where that served Luke, because had Yoda not appeared at all, whether he does or doesn't, the plot doesn't move any further. So you have to have that person step in and go, okay, now that you've gone to your place, let me finish it for you and show you what this looks like.
I will say that,
and then we're pulling back.
I will say that I think that Yoda had probably one of the best lines in the movie, and that was that, what was it? is the best teacher.
Yes.
That was awesome.
Right.
But,
And I think he had to allow Luke to fail again.
yeah.
And to see that there was somebody, because if he steps in, then it's no longer Luke who's teaching her.
Right.
It's no longer Luke who can then do what he needs to do at the end of the film. Yoda can't do that. For whatever reason, we know that there are limitations to being a Force ghost. Otherwise, everybody would commit, harikari and go off and be done with it. So there are limitations to it.
Yeah.
I was curious, had Yoda contacted Luke prior, like between where we see him at the end of Return of the Jedi and to this point? I wonder if they had communication prior. And also, where was Obi-Wan and Anakin?
Ewan McGregor could certainly do that.
Yeah, I think he could. I don't know that we would
never-
accept it, though. I don't think we would accept it because it's not Allen Guinness.
Maybe whenever they do the special editions of this trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the special edition will have Alec Guinness, or excuse me.
We've got digital
Ewan McGregor.
Sebastian
Yeah.
Shaw for you.
Yeah.
There'll be an option on the Blu-ray, you can pick which Anakin.
I like that.
I feel that Luke is not the same Luke that we saw in old movies. And of course, you want to see characters change and things like that. But seeing him as this old man who's turned his back on the Jedi, but more importantly, Kylo, it just feels like a disconnect to me, because the last time we saw Luke, he gave up everything and put everything on the line to go rescue Darth Vader from the grasp of the Emperor, because he believed there was still good in him. And yet, his apprentice Kylo, he sees that same darkness, but doesn't have the need to go back. And I know that he explains that, Kylo's too far gone and things like that, but I feel like a central part of Luke's character is that when all odds are against him, he's there for his friends, he's there for his family, and he's there to combat darkness. And I feel like that Luke is gone. What did you guys think?
Still pondering.
I'll say this.
Oh, you're doing your Luke impression for episode 7.
Nice.
I think a lot of it was when we first meet Yoda. Yoda's been, stuck on this planet alone for a long time, and he's a little nutty. So maybe Luke's, maybe he's, he's got a few screws loose there, because each one of them, Kylo and Luke, both gave their side of the story about what happened, and then Luke's like, all right, here's what really happened, and I'm like, I don't know if I like it either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
It's like
weird.
I think that's the thing, is the backstory is what makes me feel like this isn't Luke. Seeing him on the island, this disgruntled old man, I could understand how he gets from point A to point B to be that old man that's the way that he is, but just that, the story doesn't line up with Luke Skywalker. I just can't believe that the same character in episode 5 that, leaves his Jedi training to save his friends, and, leaves his friends to fight Vader in 6, is the same guy that would, even have the thought of killing his nephew, even if it's a fleeting thought. It just doesn't sound right to me.
He abandoned the cause of the rebellion to go rescue Han from Jabba the Hutt.
Sure.
Yeah, and then he won't stand up to his own nephew.
Well, yeah, but again, not necessarily to play devil's advocate, but to look at it from a different point of view.
From a certain point of view.
Exactly. I think we get a lot of explanation with respect to what Luke says about hubris. That you have to remember that Yoda warned him not to go. He did a lot of things he probably should not have done, and we do not know potentially how well things would have worked out had he not gone forward with what he did. If he stays on Dagobah, nothing happens to Han. It's much like the argument about, which I don't attend to, but the whole idea that if you never pursue the Ark, the Nazis kill themselves on the island and it's over. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, obviously. So what is it to say that on 2 different occasions, Luke acts out of turn, but because of the Force, because of what still will occur, the path, regains its footing, and you still move forward. Because Yoda warns him, Ben warns him, everybody warns him. He doesn't listen. So now he's at the other side of life, where he has life experience. He has learned that, oh wow, acting out on my emotion doesn't always pay off very well. I lose a hand, I gain a father, I create a complete disaster of a situation because I, act irrationally, and thus fall right into the hands of the Empire. And so now he has an opportunity to look back on it, but because perhaps of his age and what he has seen, because again, there's a lot of life in between those 30 plus years we haven't seen, that he has become, worn down. Think about being the last of something and the weight that he's carrying. And then when he feels like he's failed, he's ready to throw it all away. So I think we have, and this is where I have to divorce myself from the trilogy to some extent. Okay, this is just a completely new thing, and it's new canon, and it's its own canon, and go, okay, I'm okay with that. Or I can still sit there and connect it. Now, I couldn't do that before this film. I'll be honest, 7 is a clunker for me. This is a lot of redemption. I get a lot of closure out of this film that I did not receive from 7.
Does this make you feel better about 7?
That was something as I was driving over here I was thinking about. I was like, do I need to watch 7 again? I think 7's just not a well-made film for me to begin with. I think that's part of my concern with it anyway. I felt like Rian Johnson just paid tribute a little bit better to the original trilogy, and at the same time just has a better film. There's recurring themes with Return of the Jedi in this film.
Yeah, the Snoke's throne room.
Yes.
Yeah.
In where he shows, the battle in space.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I felt in a lot of ways this one felt like a final chapter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because like when Snoke got chopped in half, I was like,
oh, by the way, Snoke gets chopped in half.
by the way, Snoke
And Phasma gets killed too.
Yeah, lots of, and that's something I wrote. The second act traditionally has not had a lot of deaths in it.
Yeah.
Like episode 2, which was Jango,
Yep.
Empire Strikes Back, nobody got killed in that,
Yep.
except Dak in the back of the snowspeeder.
Yeah.
This one, a lot of significant deaths, but I was really shocked to see Snoke killed, and the way this one wrapped up, I'm like, this feels like the final movie in a trilogy more than a middle movie.
I actually said out loud, are there going to be any villains left for the final act?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, well, and I think that's, again, a turn. If you go for the Joss Whedon point of view, where he actually doesn't like Empire Strikes Back because he doesn't feel that a film that is not self-contained is not a good film. But New Hope is self-contained. Return of the Jedi is self-contained with respect to it being a conclusion story. It kind of needs Empire, obviously, so it's almost just two sides of the same coin. But this film, as you're saying, truly, it does just contain itself.
Mm-hmm.
Force Awakens clearly does not, because we're left with...
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
It is curious, because now I don't know where your jump point is. A little bit. I mean, it has some obvious places, but...
I felt there were a lot of loose ends from episode 7 that weren't tied up. Now, we did find out who Rey's parents are. They're basically nobodies. Which I said all along when everybody's like, our parents have to be, Luke Skywalker, I bet that's her dad and all that. And I'm like, what if she's just kind of nobody that just sort of showed up? So we didn't find out who Snoke was. He's just like a throwaway character now. He's gone in Act 2. Where did Maz Kanata get the lightsaber? And where did Kylo Ren get the burn-up Darth Vader?
Maz Kanata's cameo, by the way, really weak.
Oh, yeah. And again, unnecessary.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
she could have been a character that
Felt like a scene from a video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maz Kanata of this new trilogy, she's the Jar Jar Binks of this new trilogy. I mean, that character just kind of annoys me. And she's obviously CGI. She doesn't look like you could reach out and touch her. And her voice, it's like the girl that does her voice doesn't even try to do something that fits the character. It's just like her voice. It's like when you watch one of these DreamWorks movies, CGI movies, and they get a big celebrity to do the voice, and they don't do a voice. It's just the celebrity's voice. It's like, and it's like, oh wow, J-Lo's voicing this character. I don't care.
What if J-Lo was voicing?
Maz Kanata.
Yeah, wouldn't that be
Then I would hate Maz Kanata even more.
We'll have to do a fan cast episode, like who's the worst cast you could possibly put in the new trilogy. That's a future episode. Speaking of Jar Jar Binks, we got to talk about these guys, the Porgs.
Yes.
A lot of people were worried about the Porgs, worried to be ham-fisted. I gotta be honest, no fooling here, no sarcasm. I thought the Porgs were awesome.
I used to actually. And I was
easily the highlight of the movie.
Yes, you can ask anybody who has spoken to me in the last month, and every time I'd see a trailer, and I even posted the one, I said, finally I see Chewbacca throw one off the dashboard of the Falcon. Yes.
Yep.
Now I see that we're not going to play these guys up, so I had a lot better feeling going in. There it was.
I really was hating the Porgs before, but now I've totally turned to the light side. I love the Porgs.
Yeah,
they were my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, I like them. I like the caretakers. I thought they were funny.
Yeah, the caretakers were great
They
too.
played well. Here I heard somebody saying this as we were leaving the theater. I'm curious what you guys think. They actually said that they liked the Porgs more so than the Ewoks, saying that the Porgs are less annoying than Ewoks.
I would agree.
I think my biggest gripe with the Ewoks has always been they were the ones that defeat the Empire.
Yeah.
They
It's like,
should have.
really?
Well, we know they should have been Wookiees. The original.
Yeah, they should have
story
been
was
Wookiees.
Kashyyyk. Originally, it was supposed to be on Kashyyyk.
Guys, maybe we shouldn't speak so soon. Episode 9, the Porgs.
True. That could
First, they rise and defeat the Ewoks.
Well, we know that they're hatching eggs on the Falcon in the insulation, mind you. Like the Falcon needs any more issues with that particular section of the ship.
Honestly,
did anybody think of the from Star Trek the Tribbles?
Yes.
All the Porgs on the Falcon.
Yes.
I was like, they're everywhere now. They're like the trouble with Tribbles.
guys, we might have a new theory here. Resistance needs more troops.
Oh,
Nobody.
The First Order is weaker than ever with their shakeup in leadership.
Yeah. What is the maximum occupancy of the Millennium Falcon? Because we know the entire Resistance can now fit on the Millennium.
Well, there's not a whole lot of resistance left, honestly.
Yeah.
When we saw, there was probably literally a handful of them
Yeah.
left. So you're probably, the Falcon is actually quite large. When they scaled it out.
Admiral Akbar.
I know.
Did they not just sweep him under the rug?
He's,
It's like, oh yeah, by the way, Admiral Akbar's dead.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, wait, this guy's last.
That was a
name
scary
is-
moment.
Is Nian known as well? Because we didn't see.
no, he
He
was
was
on
on
the
the side.
That's right. He was on.
Yeah, he was on there.
Well, he's been there before, so now we have a pilot to fly.
Yeah, well,
with
that's
Chewie.
true. Yeah, him and Chewie.
Yeah, he
Oh, that would be cool.
Wouldn't it?
That would be cool. Okay, so we're talking about the Falcon. How does Rey know how to shoot the gun on the Falcon?
Well, she knows how to do everything already. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like it was not entirely pertinent either. I thought that was kind of brought a lot of that surprise to it as well, because then you recall, it's like, oh yeah. Which, by the way, a little aside, the shuttle that they used did not exist until the toy, the Legacy toy, was
I
created.
noticed that. The escape pod on the Falcon is the one from the toy.
Yes, and that was only created so that the kids could have something to fly around because it was built as a playset. So that's kind of neat that you have.
A nice little Easter egg.
Yeah, that the toy was.
It even has the little window
It
in the
did,
top,
yeah.
so you can see the figure down it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, some of us aren't as cool as you guys that have the Legacy Falcon. But,
Which is why I love that gun.
and if anybody,
I like the X-wing hidden in the water.
yeah,
So
that
you
was,
could sort
I
of like
thought
finish
that was
his
great.
X-wing.
I kept
That was a
thinking,
nice
I
touch.
kept thinking that Luke was gonna fly in on it. Honestly.
Yeah, I thought that was what
My
at the
brother
end.
said the same thing.
Yeah.
He was hoping that he would levitate it out of
Yeah.
the water, much like Yoda
Yoda.
did for him. So now we see that Luke
This
brings
comes
out
full
the water.
circle.
Yeah, that would have been a neat
Yeah.
point. But boy, that was a fantastic scene though. When he walks out, you're like, okay. You knew that it wasn't him because his beard was
Yeah,
his
like
hair
it
was
was
short. He was.
He'd taken a lot of time to manicure him. So,
Yeah. So yeah, the hint was that he was showing himself as Kylo remembered him, as
Oh,
Leia
yeah,
remembers him.
yeah.
So because he knew this would be the last time he'd be seen by them, so he was giving them what they needed to see, not his now worn self. So I thought that was a really nice touch that we all get to see him in his. And boy, he definitely took it to Kylo. thought that was
I don't know
fantastic.
though. I mean, it was all matrixy.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
like with dodging the bullets and dodging.
Yeah.
I thought that was a kind of a cop out, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't. I
Yeah.
thought that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see Luke one more time holding the saber and challenging and doing what he could do, which was he showed how much faster he was, etc., and how much more. But ultimately, not just faster, but he was wiser. He showed his wisdom once again that he didn't have to be there physically. He didn't have to go save his friends physically. He could now do it as he should have done it many times before with the Force.
Does that take the threat out though? Does that, the fact that he can show up without showing up? I feel like there's not a lot of consequence behind that. And I agree with the whole older, wiser, learning, so on and so forth, but
Well, we know he wasn't going to be able to get there in time physically either.
but if he would have left with Rey when she asked.
But again, that's the whole play of the, fulfilling the character. If he
He-
does
he
leave
could
when
have
he
got there
asks,
in
then
time
it's,
if
I
he-
think that's a little weak,
Yeah.
honestly. I think it's a little,
It would have felt like a little forced, like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have worked, but I guess if you flip the script back a few pages and wrote it a little bit differently, and I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of points where we can all go back and
I
forth.
feel like-
but
oh,
I
absolutely.
just,
I feel
the
like
fact that he wasn't there for the last battle was just.
Yeah. It was kind of a.
It's not the Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy, and I think that's okay because you have growth. But
yeah. Well, and technically though, he wasn't there for any original battle because he always fought solo battles. They just happened to be happening at the same time as, others. I mean, it's not Han that destroys the Death Star, it's Lando and Nien Nunb. And then you get, it's Han down on Endor with Leia, and then it's Luke fighting an independent battle on the Death Star. If you really want to argue it, he abandoned the rebellion to go save his father, again. Luke wasn't at the final battle of anything, because except for A New Hope. Otherwise, he's not the central figure, technically. He's the central figure of the story, but technically they're there to destroy the Death Star, not to save Darth Vader. They're there to destroy the shield, generator, not save Darth Vader. So this is actually the first time since A New Hope that he shows up at the end of a battle.
Ish.
Well, right, but to be fair, that's what we're arguing that he wasn't there. Yeah. Well, he really hasn't ever been there except for the original time.
As I noticed that with the two name actors coming into it, Laura Dern and Benicio del Toro, they did a flip on both of them.
Yes, they did.
Because at one point you thought Laura Dern's character was evil, and she was really good, and then when you gain Benicio del Toro's trust, and then he turns.
Right.
Which I think it's also strange that I have no idea what their characters' names are.
And this bothered me on the car ride home, but did anyone hear anyone utter the Star Wars catchphrase, "I've got a bad feeling about this"?
No.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No, and I was hoping for Never Tell Me the Odds with when 3PO was rolling off his numbers and he started to be shushed by Poe, and I was like, please say it, and he didn't, so I was a little disappointed.
That scene felt very like Rogue One-ish.
Yeah.
Like the humor and everything.
Right. For me, as a Han Solo fan, I finally got the closure I needed in this film because I felt like they treated the character with not just respect, but made him integral to the plot. Without even he actually was more integral to the plot in 8 as a non-corporeal being than he was in 7, wandering about on 2 feet.
And he wasn't even blue and sparkly.
No, he wasn't. He didn't have to be. He was actually as relevant or more relevant in that way. And I got quite a bit of closure through it because he's mentioned so often. He's mentioned influentially upon Kylo. You see. I thought it was a great, I think we've had 2 great moments of reflection on the cockpit. On 7, when Han steps in it for the first time, in however long, we don't know how long. And then Luke stepping on it and then taking the dice down. Because we know this is where his whole story began. Mm-hmm. It began in that moment on that cockpit, realizing I'm going to Alderaan. And from there, I don't know what else. But to take that, and then he hands that to Leia, and he says that no one's ever truly gone. And he gives it to her. And then she gets to hold, which, again, quite a bit of force power.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did that happen exactly? Because he wasn't actually there.
Exactly, and who picks it up at the end? It fades in his hands.
Kylo.
And then it fades as Luke fades. So Luke was holding
his hand the whole time.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think powerful. Yeah, it's a powerful moment because that's his friend. When you see Chewie and he goes, the Falcon, where's Han? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. His instantaneous moment, you realize the friendship they have. It is, they are brothers. They have been since, the save.
The original motion picture bromance.
Yeah, truly, it was. And which is what they're trying to emulate with Finn and Poe, but it really seems like they steered more towards Poe and this little fellow right here. And Finn, we haven't even talked about that yet.
I feel like Finn was a waste of space for the most part for this movie, because what did he do that was really important?
You're right, because if we say that other plot point is irrelevant, it's almost like they just wrote it to keep him. Yeah. Do you think that because Poe is supposed to die in 7, that they have steered a lot of what would have been Finn's direction towards Poe?
That's a possibility.
Possible. And here's another thing, speaking of little Han. You notice that Poe dresses just a little bit like Han Solo?
A little bit more in this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Including the shirt, he's wearing the ESB, Return of the Jedi shirt. He even has the calf seams on the pants. It's right down to those little minor details.
Maybe he did the Lando Calrissian closet from the end of Empire Strikes Back. Don't guess he's going to be needing these for a while. My clothes are back on Cloud City.
Yeah, that is true because it's like Finn's clothes burned up on the on the TIE Fighter. I'm sorry, Poe's did, and Finn's borrowing it now. Like, let's raid this closet.
It also did not occur to me, I guess, until the end of this movie that Poe and Rey never actually met.
That was interesting.
Because I thought they were just, how you see an old friend, you're like, oh, hey, I'm Michael, how you doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, if they do it like that, I'm like, no, wait a minute. And I started thinking, I'm like, wouldn't they have met at some point? Like at the end of that last movie?
Yeah, because they were on base at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, Poe landed there.
They just never really had any screen time, I guess. So
And I don't know. I don't want to make any presumptions because it looks like they're maybe pushing this Rey, Kylo, maybe a little bit of a relationship. Don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Rey looked like she had big doe eyes.
Oh yeah,
she
looked like she enjoyed Poe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the curiosity. Because we know now, Finn has Rose. I mean, she's like, we fight for what we who or what we love, and then she kisses him before
who's a nice character, but again, a waste of a nice character.
Yeah, but I liked her a lot more.
I liked her character a lot more than I thought of.
Me too.
Kind of like the Porgs.
Yeah. I think that's what.
All right. So, final thoughts on Star Wars: The Last Jedi. We'll go around the table. We'll start with you, Mike.
Final thoughts. Enjoyed it a lot more than I did 7. I felt like Rian Johnson understands this trilogy, understands these characters a lot more than J.J. Abrams does. No disrespect to him, obviously. He had a tough task of having to resurrect a film franchise. But I felt like overall how he endeared these moments and characters and music, et cetera, I felt, a lot better about it. As I said earlier, it was the most fun I've had watching a Star Wars film in a long time.
I enjoyed it. I mean, it was like, I told somebody today, I'm like, this is like getting 2 Christmases.
Yeah.
And it really is, but it's kind of like, at the end of the day, you look at your presents and you're like, I don't know if I like all of these. I might take some of them back.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed it. But, I've got to see it a couple more times.
Yeah.
Just got to take it in a little more.
I enjoyed it. It was fun as a Star Wars movie, but I definitely have some parts that stick out for me. There are parts that just don't feel like Star Wars. There are parts that just feel more like Star Wars than Star Wars itself.
Yeah.
And so,
Good point.
I don't know. There's some disappointment there, if I'm being honest. But I agree with Michael. I just think seeing it a couple more times will help solidify my feelings on it. And for now,
you must look over the past.
I enjoyed. There were lots of really good beats, really good parts, really good lines. But the overall sum, I'm kind of like, I don't know. Maybe I need to watch it again. And this conversation tonight has definitely made me think some thoughts that I need to take into my next viewing. I think so. Yeah.
I would agree. So I think consensus, we've got a lot of different thoughts going on here for sure. Some good, some bad, nothing ugly.
Right.
Nothing ugly.
No, nothing ugly.
But, it's definitely worth seeing. It's a Star Wars movie.
Still better than the prequels.
Yeah.
Always, yes, always better than the prequels.
But in any case, Star Wars: The Last Jedi is definitely worth checking out. Mike, Michael, Charles, thanks for being on the show tonight. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one. Dude, seriously.